Nate, you mentioned guys that come out of nowhere. I want to bring up Kenny Pickett for a second, if I could.
Yeah.
I know in some of the analysis you've done, you have some commentary about his progressions, how he needs to develop on that front. Obviously, the talking point going into the draft and after the combine has been the 8.5-inch hands, which another data point. But you hit on something with the guys who come out of nowhere that I've always thought, and I'm not an analyst, I'm not a scout, but my untrained eye is always a little bit concerned when a guy like a Kenny Pickett has just a meteoric rise in the course of one season. Kenny Pickett threw more touchdowns this past season than he had in the previous 3 combined. It was an incredible year by any stretch, but I always worry that guys like that are fool's gold. Now, counterpoint, Joe Burrow, not fool's gold, and he fits a similar template. But give us your sense of Kenny Pickett. How worried should folks be? How high should he go on draft day? What is his status as a pro quarterback moving forward?
Yeah, what Pickett is, and people have compared these two as Burrow and Pickett just because of that meteoric rise. A lot of this is going into process and going what they do as the snaps going pre and post snap. So just discerning what the defense is, if they have any protection stuff, and then after snap, seeing where their eyes go. And why I'm bringing that up is even before Burrow's huge year, I'm not going to say like I have heard of Burrow before that big year, but when you would watch him and then watch the previous season before he blew up, you could still see some of the processing stuff. You could still see some of the flashes of going, okay, you get it. Like you get how to play the quarterback position. The offense wasn't great. You weren't great either, but you at least you looked like a day 3 pick. Like at the time, he really looked like a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder type. And then he just exploded. That now we're all going to know who Joe Burrow is for the rest of our lives. With Pickett is, yes, he is an older prospect and all that. And why I bring that up is that is what's more than the hand size, more than any of that stuff is for a guy that's an older guy in an offense that he's been in before. He doesn't really stay in the pocket and process how I thought he would. I thought he would be a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 machine, just a vet, just sitting in there knifing and dicing guys up from the pocket. And really, he's a one and done guy, which is also his strength. And when I mean one and done, it's I'm going to read A, that's not open, scramble time. Let's make a play happen. And that's his best asset is he can create, which is needed at the quarterback position in the NFL now. You can't just be a Bledsoe. You can't you can be Tom Brady, but you also need about 10 years of experience to get to that level of sitting in the pocket and not creating with your legs. You need to be able to create, especially early in your career, so you can get the mental reps. So the fact that he's a guy that's been in an offense for years or a couple of years, he's an older prospect, he's going against younger guys, and the fact that he's still mentally is more of like a one and done freshman, sophomore type, that's my cause for concern with him. I have him as a late 2nd, early 3rd round grade. And this is not like it's kind of a joke, but I don't mean it to be. I compared him to Tyler Heineke from Washington, and the fact that I think he's a better version of that. And how Pickett wins, how all these guys, you have to figure out how they win, and how Pickett wins is creation and accuracy. And if his mental processing from the pocket, he can get to a system that's a little more patient with him. I think he needs more time than people realize. I think people are like, oh, plug and play. He's pro ready. I think he still needs some time as far as mentally to like calm himself down in the pocket and really like process from there.
You've also made a similar comment about Matt Corral from Ole Miss and Sam Howell from North Carolina. Now, different context. Yeah. I think you focus in a little bit more on the systems that Corral and Howell have run, but the criticism is sort of in the same vein with regard to processing. Yeah. When you get to this stage in your career, Nate, I mean, you obviously are pretty familiar with the NFL and how things work on that level. Can you coach a guy up to the point where that processing gets to where it needs to be, where the read progression can get to where it needs to be? Or is the concern that it's too little too late at this point?
You can. And that's why it's again, I'm going to talk out both sides of my mouth. You can, but the thing is, it takes time. And it also, you want to see the flashes of it when they're in college. Okay. Because then it's a can or won't thing. Are they doing that because you can't do it, or you won't do it and we can teach it into you? That's what you're trying to figure out. Like, that's why. So at Corral is Lane Kiffin, I've seen run various versions of offense, RPO heavy, pro style, mix in, pistol, like just a little bit of everything. He changes it up all the time. Seeing him, in situations where the quarterback is usually has to be the most valuable guy, a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 7. Hey, let's drop back and pass, and you have to find the right throw. Lane Kiffin would choose to just run like a QB counter, would just choose to run a screen. And that's where my red alerts go off. And so that's why a guy can come from an RPO heavy system. Mac Jones, perfect example. Like everyone wants to think Alabama is this pro style. It's not. It is RPO as RPOs get.
Right.
His processing in it was magical. It was just how quick he went. 1, 2, 3. Like he would just, and the ball would just go to the perfect spot every time. So that was one of those where it's like, okay, you didn't run a lot of pro style stuff, quote unquote pro style, but I think you can. I'm going to make a bet that you can handle it. When you watch a Matt Corral, is anytime he has to go 1 to 2, they do run a drop back. It's like, hold on to your hat. Sometimes he can do it. Sometimes it's all over the place. A lot of times he's looking to run. You never really want to see these guys, and both of these guys do it, Corral and Howell, is they look to run, and Pickett. They all look to run right away. And why that matters is you have to do damage from the pocket. You have to, because defense is just too fast and good. You can't just keep scrambling. You're going to get whacked over, and you just can't. And it's a 3-yard gain where you just took a shot, and that's not worth it to the offense. Yes, using your legs on like a 3rd down and getting it is good, but not living that way, making a living that way. And so that's where my concerns with Corral and Howell come, is that when they were asked to do the drop back stuff, it was a grab bag. There was no consistency to their game. And it's like, yes, you can get on these guys on the whiteboard and at the combine and go, okay, maybe they can handle it. But when you're seeing just maybe those 3 or 4 or 5 snaps a game and they can't really do it consistently, that's where your concern is that, well, if they can't do it for 5 snaps, now I'm asking them doing it for 15, 25 snaps. That's a little scary.